It's not dissimilar to the way that Bitches Brew was done. Bunch of jams, and then Miles kind of figured stuff to play over it. It's similar to another recording I have in the sense Reincarnation. We started off with Kai and Dazan Claiborne, same drummer, and on that recording a different piano player, Peter Horvath. But they just laid down a bunch of jams. And at the time, I was kind of, Kai co-produced that record with me, and I was a little taken aback, because I didn't know what key they were in or what time signature. They were just playing all this stuff. And it was a little difficult, but I managed to figure out a way to play stuff over it and made some melodies and so forth over it. And the last few things I've done have been pretty live in terms of Gregory James recordings. And just thought it'd be interesting to do that kind of concept again. Kai has his own band now, the Kai Eckhart Band, and I went to see them in a concert in a loft. And it was a rainy Friday night. Traffic was really bad. Kai's wife was still on the freeway, and a lot of people hadn't showed up yet. So they just did a couple of jams before they went through their regular written pieces. And I just was so taken with the chemistry that they had that I thought it would be very, very interesting to just have them do a bunch of jams and try and make some sense of it. I've worked with Cookie Marenko, and by the way, I wouldn't do this concept without Cookie, because we worked together for the better part of, well, over 20 years. She's an amazing recording engineer and producer, and so I know that we would be able to make something of it, even as I say, it turned out to be radically different from what I'd intended. So we record direct to 24-track 2-inch tape. It's analog. The drums in a kind of high-ceilinged room, and then actually it's in Cookie's home, so it's a suburban home. Kai actually in the isolation booth, but going direct, the bass going direct into the board, and then the keyboards, electric keyboards going direct into the board. And we also used Cookie's old Steinway. It's about a 1911 Steinway acoustic piano on some tracks. So they literally, and Kai of course was with Garage Mahal for about 10 or 15 years, and before that John McLaughlin, so he's very used to improvising. So these guys just literally jam. And they will take turns each tune. One tune Dazan will be the leader, one tune Osam, the piano player, will be a leader, one tune Kai will be a leader, and then they go back to just repeat that cycle. And so whoever is the leader, everyone pays special attention to, and if certain things are repeated 2 or 3 times, that will kind of, it's something Herbie Hancock called controlled freedom. Speaking of Miles, I'm really fond of 67, 68, 69, Miles Davis, where there were set pieces and there are certain parts of the tune that were sort of known and arranged, and then the rest would be just free. And so if someone plays a certain thing or plays a certain motif or a couple of notes 2 or 3 times, it's like, okay, now it's time to move on. So we have 24 tracks of guitar, bass, and bass, piano, and drums. And I'm in the process now of listening to it and kind of notating where things went. And then I'll try and figure out first if it's going to be an acoustic or an electric guitar part, what goes over it. There may be a couple of guitar parts, that sort of thing. I've always viewed the recording process as very different from a live show. It's more painterly in a way. I think you can layer on stuff more. But also I like to be very spontaneous. It's 1 or 2 takes. And my concept also for the record is to have Emily play some violin on it, and then probably some sax and flute, maybe in a couple of spaces here and there, and maybe our percussionist Enrique, or there's a percussionist also who's an African drummer, Rasaki Alakudun, who played on Reincarnation, that we might have. So a little bit of texture. There was a music store there called Portals of Music, and within 6 months after I started playing guitar, you could walk, in the old days you could sift through the record bins and actually take an LP in and play it in the booth. They used to have audition booths. And there was this record with a guitar in the rain on the cover in New York, outside a New York nightclub. It was a Kenny Burrell record. And I thought, this looks pretty serious. So let me check this out. And it was Kenny Burrell live at the Village Vanguard. I'm going to forget, it was a trio, bass and drums. I'm going to forget off the top of my head who the bass player and the drummer were, but they were good. And then I realized after that Kenny Burrell had a record with John Coltrane. And so all of a sudden I was, went from the Beatles to like, Kenny Burrell to John Coltrane and Miles Davis at age 11, 12, getting immersed in this whole other world, which is kind of a way, I think, for a young 11, 12-year-old to escape this whole kind of different world.